Hey guys, Akio Murasaki here. Today I want to talk about Silver in Blood. Yes, a gacha game that I have been playing, well, apparently in October, but actually I've been playing it since the release, since the official global release. And I did like a short, half an hour video about it, covering some of the dailies, some of the features. The link is going to be at the very end if you want to go check this one out. I want to make two extra videos, one covering the characters, since quite some things have changed, and also I think maybe for the people who do want to try out the game, I highly recommend it, by the way. You might be interested which characters it's worth investing in and why exactly. This is a little different than some of the guides you are going to find online, which are kind of like, I would say, a little dry and min-maxy. And I feel like they don't really go into some of the details of why some characters are good, let's say in terms of movement and placement, for instance, in PvE, and doing the campaign as well. And that's how I want this video to be a little different than the regular character guides you're gonna find around. And I'm gonna do another video which is going to be a review of Silver in Blood, and also I'm going to briefly then explain why exactly is that such an amazing game and I decided to no longer play it. But okay, let's jump right into the character review, rather the kind of character guide. So yeah, here are my characters. As you can see, some of them are upgraded quite far, some of them not so much. But let's start with the basics. If you've played Nikke Goddess of Victory, you will see certain things, like for instance the levels here, being somewhat familiar to you, especially if you're a longer time player and if you've been playing Goddess of Victory for for a longer while. You're definitely gonna see some of this stuff appearing. There are actually a lot of features that are very similar between the two games. But let me just scroll through. Let's pick one of the characters first to let me illustrate what I mean by the similarities with Goddess of Victory. Okay, this one's a perfect example, actually, not only because she's hot, but also because of the levels. You can see here, she's level 160 out of 120, okay? We're gonna explain this in a little while, but first, the whole leveling system. So, first off, when you start the game, you can level up your character to whatever level you want. It's regardless of your actual player level. Very useful. Pretty much the same as in Nikke Goddess of Victory. Second thing. The first kind of max level you are going to see is actually level 80. Same as in Nikke. That's the first cap you are going to see. The next cap, if you upgrade your character, let me just see if I can actually pick one of the other characters here. Yes. If you have a copy of your character, that's going to then fill up one upgrade star here, one Crimson Moon. That's going to allow you upgrading to level 120. And then if you get two copies and if you upgrade the character even further, the max level you can then get per this character is 160. Now, of course, as you can see, this is an SR character. Rules the same as in Nikke apply, so you can only upgrade it with, I would say, 2 stars or 2 circles or whatever, giving you a max level for SR characters 160 if you just look at the characters themselves. Now, for SSR characters, you are then able to upgrade the character all the way. You can give them you can do free upgrades. Okay, you have, as you can see, you have free slots. You can do free upgrades to a maximum level of 200. And I haven't gotten, as you've probably seen, I haven't gotten enough SR characters to 200 in order to unlock like the further leveling above 200. But as far as I know, that's also possible. But basically, the same rules apply. You try to upgrade your characters to level 200, and then you go from there. So basically, you need to have a pool of SSR characters upgradable to 200. So basically filling up 3 of the moons here, and that is going to be the case for some of my characters. Let me see. Oh, this one here for Edina, for instance. Edina, as you can see, max level 200, and that is basically the last upgrade for each character that you can have. Now, afterwards, again, rules the same as in Nikke. You can continue upgrading your character. You then get these tier DOS, as you can see here, up to A6 toll. Then this is the maximum. You're done with leveling the character. With upgrading the character. Now, as you've probably noticed, as was the case with Iona here, let me just bring her up again. She's level 160 out of 120. Okay, now how is that possible? So Silver and Blood has exactly the same mechanisms as Nikke. Here it's called transfusion, where you need 5, well, can be SR characters, but 5 highest level characters. As you can see here, that's the ones I have. Ideally, these are going to be your SSR characters. You do then upgrade them to level 200, and then that allows basically all the other characters that are listed here to also be by default level 200. Easy enough, okay? And that basically leads me to the next point, which is initially when you begin the game, you will want to prioritize only a handful of characters. Only a handful of characters in your pools in order to get these 5 characters here for transfusion as soon as possible. Now let's see. I hope this is still the case. In the standard embrace, it's called Blue Dawn. In the standard embrace, you have the altar. And in the altar here, you can select from each of the factions, from Church, Bloodborne, and Kingdom, you can select a number of characters that are going to be boosted in your regular standard banner droves. And so, again, this is quite a lot actually, but this is very similar to Nikke, yeah? So we select a number of characters that you want to prioritize, and then obviously, you just keep on rolling until you get your 5 characters max out to level 200, which I would say compared to Nikke, and especially that the game is still kind of on the newer side because it just released this year, middle of this year, it's not as easy getting the resources, which is basically the second point I want to make here. So do not try to upgrade as many characters as possible. Try to really focus only the top 5 characters for transfusion. And so here's the thing, right? For I think every boundary like level 80, level 20, level 160, you're going to run into the problem where one of the components, one of the resources is definitely, especially if you go really fast with the game and really fast with the upgrades, one of the resources is going to be limited, and that's going to be Divine Blood Drops. You're very quickly going to run out of Divine Blood Drops if you just keep on upgrading your characters. Unlike the other resources, unlike for instance Pure Blood Essence and also Gold, which is called Sully here, these regenerate very easily with kind of your daily build-up. Unfortunately, that is not the case with Divine Blood Drops. These you get only very small amounts of, okay? And that makes everything way more complicated. So you really need to focus on only upgrading this handful of characters that you prioritize. Okay, so now we're moving on to part 2, which is, okay, but which characters? So we are looking at the ones here that I selected. Some of them unfortunately are from the limited banner. I will also talk about this and why this is problematic. Again, don't want to go into the review, but some things do need to be mentioned here. So obviously, if you are going to prioritize your characters for upgrades, you do want to only pick characters from the standard banner. Most of them are from the standard banner, Some of them were actually added to the standard banner, which is very nice, but unfortunately not all of them are. So going from the top of the useful characters, definitely Lamia, amazing AoE damage. Even though her ultimate is random, I think it's incredibly useful. It's very good to have her on the team. It's very good to upgrade her as well. Perfect. What else do we have? The top buffer, Acapella. I'm gonna be honest, you absolutely need to get this character if you want to have a decent team. She's maybe not as strong as a healer because she's kind of like a secondary weaker healer. So you can run her as the main healer if you either have a strong team, if you have a defender, or a vanguard, what it's called here. You can run a team like this and then have Acapella being like the second support, the quote unquote main healer, but Acapella is for sure not the main healer. Her heals are quite weak, but where she does compensate is buffing, and that's essentially why you definitely do need to get her. Moving on, we have Bella, one of the strongest tanks in the game. And I also want to point out here that Bella is especially good in, I guess, PvP probably, because of the fact that PvP is fully automated. But I would say more so Bella is really good in PvE and doing the campaign. Specifically because every time she comes on stage, she creates two puppets, which the enemies are obviously going to attack, and that makes your life way easier. That's basically how she does her tanking. Her ultimate is a super puppet, which I think landing stuns the enemies, that is useful, but in general is not as useful as her regular puppets, and her self heals as well. These are incredibly useful, that she heals herself and the puppets. As a tank, top tier, absolutely amazing. Then one of the characters that I do still keep around, and for I would say very, very good reasons, this is Timeless Iona. What is special about Timeless Iona? So whenever she enters the stage, and this is very important in case you have her and you're considering not taking her out of your teams. The thing with Timeless Iona is that when she casts her initial shield spell, it's not instantaneous. She doesn't enter the battlefield with it. She casts it, so there's a possibility of her dying or losing a lot of her hit points before that happens, which is why you might want to put her in the back of the line and not necessarily in the front. Although she does work surprisingly well as a secondary tank, precisely because she reduces her hit points in half and creates a shield. I can't remember exactly now. It's actually explained here in one of her abilities. Let me check here. It is equivalent to 200% as it stands now, 200% of her current, and she consumes only 40%, I thought 50%, of 40% of her hit points, and converts and gains a shield that is equal to 200% of the consumed, of the consumed hit points. Okay, so it's not of total hit points. That's also quite important. But basically, and then of course she attacks, and then for every attack she does, she regenerates that shield, so it's very easy for her to maintain the shield, and of course her ultimate also is incredibly strong. So even though she's a limited character, I was not able to upgrade her entirely, and I do kind of regret, because even though I have other characters, I do still keep her in my teams, and it's very useful. What else do we have? We have Pyrrha. Pyrrha sucks. I'm gonna be honest. So she's also a summoner, just like Bella. She creates pillars that attack the enemies. Are the pillars strong? Yes. Do they shoot often? No. And other than this, her basic attack is incredibly weak. Her ultimate, even though it should really kick a punch, is not that great. You might think, okay, but why did he upgrade the character? Well, the main reason why I actually upgraded Pyrrha was because I kept getting her in a lot of the standard banner roles, so I just ended up upgrading her. Yeah. but it's not, Pyrrha is not really good. She is considered in the same category as Lamia, so like full offense. No, it's very underwhelming. Then we have Stella. I did keep upgrading Stella. I have multiple copies of her. I'm actually very happy with that. As you can see, free copies. Stella's main strength, I would say, is her positioning, that you can quickly reposition her and deal crazy amounts of damage. But unfortunately, she is a limited banner character, yes, so she's not going to return on the standard banner. Still, if you have her, even if she's kind of unupgraded or you only upgraded her once, so we have her with like 1 moon, I think she's still incredibly strong, worth keeping her a little bit in back. Quinn, I don't have Quinn in any of my main teams, but she's a very interesting option as, I think it's called Vanguard actually. Defender, sorry, not Vanguard, Defender. She's a very, very strong defender option, especially for PvP. If you're creating like a PvP defense team, you absolutely need to put her in there. And I'm trying to remember, I don't remember exactly, I think she is actually on the standard banner, so you can put her up on the standard banner. We can even verify this quickly. Let me see if she's on the standard banner. We go checking here, we check. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, she is. She's right here. Yes, I did put her on the standard banner. So yeah, that makes your life as a new player way easier actually. You don't have to fight with the event banner. You can put her on from the standard banner and then have multiple copies of her. A very capable tank. I wouldn't necessarily put her on the same level as, let's say, Bella, but I think she's really, really strong. So the only problem with her is that some of her abilities, I think they require her actually losing hit points, which is not a great thing. Then we have Agnes. Amazing support and debuffer. I usually kind of don't really pay special attention to her regular skills, but her ultimate is a godsend. You can, what it basically does is it moves the enemies from a region to a tight circle, reduces their attack and movement speed, and deals damage on top of this. So you can basically chain her ultimate with another character's ultimate very, very easily, and to deal crazy amounts of damage. You can, for instance, combine Agnes with Stella if you have Stella, and you can very easily clear like a PvE stage. Incredibly useful. Cecia, I do have her upgraded, but only because I had multiple copies. I do not think she's all that strong. Her basic attacks, I think they do lack in range. Her ultimate is quite strong on the surface, but the problem is the cost. It costs 5, and sometimes you might not have that much, or you might want to spend these action points somewhere else. And so Cecia probably is not going to be that someone, right? Then we have Darcias. I personally like Darcias a lot. Him, her, she, he. I don't think Darcias even has gender, so it's gonna be tricky talking about Darcias. I do think, well, let's say she. Okay. I do think her ultimate is very, very useful, and her standard debuff with bleed is also incredibly strong. But I would rather consider Darcias as like a kind of secondary melee support, more like a support character, rather than being on one of your main teams. And one of the reasons is that the ultimate acts in like an arch. Sorry, it's in a fan. My bad. The attack is in a fan, so it's not exactly AoE damage, and that is quite problematic, because sometimes Darcias might end up facing only one enemy, and then all of the usefulness on the ultimate is basically gone. So not great for Darcias. Definitely not on one of my main teams. Edina, I use Edina as one of my main healers, and in that sense she is incredibly useful. But otherwise, since I typically do not need a main healer, I have Acapella as my secondary healer, and then I have a defender. I only ever run her, I think, against some of the boss stages, like single boss stages, where you do definitely need a healer, otherwise you wouldn't survive. Lorelei, interestingly, Lorelei, one of the first limited characters in the game. I don't run her in my main teams unless I really need to anymore, but I have to say Lorelei is insanely strong. There's only one catch. Everything essentially starts with her ultimate, so she needs to cast her ultimate, otherwise her damage is just so-so. But the moment she casts her ultimate, she moves, it's targeted. So basically you move to like an enemy, like as an assassin character, because she in fact is of the assassin type. You can move behind enemy lines, like with, I think, all of the assassin characters actually. Behind enemy lines, you sleep all of the enemies on the way, and since then, since you cast the ultimate, Lorelei deals insane damage with her jump attacks. If you have her upgraded, please do keep her because she's super strong. And also, what's even more useful, if you are running a magic damage team, Godsend in a magic damage team. If it's a mixed team with mixed buffs, then probably not, but if you're buffing M damage, then you definitely would want to have Lorelei, but unfortunately she's a limited character, so that is a little over. Hati, not in any of my main teams, not a big fan. Her initial jump, initial attack is quite useful, her ultimate is quite strong, but otherwise is not a very strong character, I would say. Then we have Del Carlo, a very useful debuff. I don't run her in any of my main teams, but because her debuff, let me just have a look what it does. 10 seconds, frozen enemies deals damage, magical attack, a number of cards. But as far as I know, not, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, her ultimate transforms the enemies into animals, which then are, of course, easier to kill. Which is great if you're, for instance, combining Del Carlo with another character like Lamia or one of the other characters that do AoE damage. This is again like an instant clear. But unfortunately, her main attacks are not very strong, so these debuffing capabilities, like, maybe not on the main team. Then we have an interesting character called Pavana. You cannot get Pavana from any of the standard banners, she's not on any of the event banners. You can only get her from the PvP store when you exchange for points. You can, however, upgrade when you're PvPing a lot and you have, decent scores. You can, of course, get Pavana's max upgrade, so you can upgrade her, all the way to level 200, and then continue upgrading and unlocking her capabilities. The only problem with Pavana is that she's not exactly useful. She's not a useful character, I think. Her ultimate, one of the bigger weaknesses of her ultimate is that it's actually targeted, and even though it's AoE damage, as it clearly says here, it is AoE, but you need to select an enemy. So if you're accidentally selecting an enemy, it's like a single enemy away from a group, or you can't really select a group freely, then you aren't really wasting turns a little bit. The good thing about Pavana is that she does sleep the enemies, so you do have a bit of a buffer when you want to disable some enemies and move them away as like a typical debuffer. And here it says control, which is basically what she does. In that sense, incredibly useful, but not for the main teams. And then continuing, we have Otavia. Otavia is, again, a very similar, very interesting character, just like Lorelei with her magic-based attack. Good for magic teams, as you can see here. Not so much great in general. I think if you like the character, then it's maybe worth upgrading her. But otherwise, I don't think she provides enough utility to warrant this. We have Amy. I used to run Amy in one of my main teams in the past. because of her buffing and healing capabilities. I actually like this Amy better than the Transcendent Amy. I personally feel like this Amy is a little more useful. But again, since she links up with only one of the other characters, not exactly the most useful character then, right? Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here. Alright, let's continue. And then we have, again, an event character. We have, oh sorry, I have no idea how that happened. We have Fleeting Bella, which I think is a very capable healer, and I can't remember, I do think I might be running, or I might have been running her in one of my main PvP teams. I don't remember exactly now. But she does link up with two other characters providing healing, which I think is super useful. But again, since she is an event character, if you do not get her, you can't really upgrade her, which then limits her usefulness if you're just starting out or, you know, building teams in fact. Tybalt, which I am not a fan of, is actually an incredibly strong AoE magician character. As I said, unfortunately I did not upgrade Tybalt at all because I'm not really fond of the design. However, the character itself is insanely strong. So for instance, the ultimate, you cast it in a region. Second, it automatically homes on an enemy, deals damage, and then once that enemy dies, then continues moving to another enemy and continues dealing damage. And it does stay up for quite a while, which again is super, super useful. I wish I would have, I guess, upgraded Tybalt a little earlier. I would say Tybalt is probably stronger than Lamia in like raw AoE capabilities, and therefore is definitely worth having in one of the main teams. Saf has a very weird time reversal ability that I'm gonna be honest, I'm not an expert to the point that I would be able to make use of it, you know, accordingly. And also, you can't get Saf easily. I think you can only get Saf from exchanges or from very, very rare ancestry character pools. Yeah, I haven't really gotten more than one copy so far, as you can see. Now, let's see the other characters. Continuing with the characters, let's see who we have. We have Transcendent Hattie, who, again, just like Saf, is a very hard character to get. You cannot select her on the standard banner as your preferred characters for rate up. And therefore, I would say prioritizing her doesn't really make sense. I've read in one of the guides that she works quite well with Darcias. I haven't tried that, and also I wouldn't really be running her in one of my main teams, even though, yeah, supposedly strong if you upgrade her and you combine her with Darcias, not so very strong otherwise, and in general not very strong as a character. Maybe unsurprisingly, because of the way her ultimate works and the way it's like completely random, I do not recommend personally. The same with Limina. Limina also has like a bit of a quirky ultimate ability. Let's just have a look at it since I don't exactly remember. Deals damage in a circle if okay, so basically cause of the next reduced blood servant for 20 seconds. Okay, so basically debuffing plus damage. Yeah, but again, you cannot upgrade her. Unfortunately, you can only get her from exchanges and also if you're really, really lucky, like some of the other characters, like the transcendent versions of Hattie, for instance. Gilrain. Gilrain works very similar to Hattie, if you're kind of interested, and I think it should be treated similarly in terms of like, is it worth as a character? But again, if you like the design, I don't see anything wrong, you know, in investing in Gilrain here, for instance. But otherwise, not my top pick. Same with Selena. not my top pick, absolutely. I don't actually even use her so much, so can't comment too much. Van Helsing, his ultimate is insanely strong, but unfortunately I do not really like the character design too much, so I don't have him in any of my teams ever. However, I think, oh, it says AoE damage, sorry, I wanted to say single attack, no, AoE damage as well. Great, incredibly strong burst ultimate. Yes, I would definitely recommend having Van Helsing actually. But we're gonna talk about team compositions a little bit once I go through all of the SSR characters, as I will. I will try to speed up a little bit. So Spectral Gilrain, typical assassin character, instantly jumps behind the enemy line, attacking them from the back. A very useful ultimate as well. I would personally treat him way above regular Gilrain and Hati as well. Definitely worth investing. Then we have Genevieve, which I'm not gonna comment on because I haven't played with her too much. As you can see, my bottom is basically these characters just crazily accumulating and doing nothing useful here. Funny is useful though, I have to admit. I like her ultimate, I like her debuffs. Definitely useful to have, but again, event character, can't get otherwise. From the ones here at the very bottom, let me just get, so I'm just gonna mention a couple of them because with some of them I haven't really played too much and therefore I can't really comment. I can comment on Starry Iona, which unfortunately, as you can see, I don't really have upgraded. Starry Iona is incredibly useful in PvP. She gives a shield to herself and one ally, sorry, not to one ally, not to herself. Or maybe also to herself. Let me maybe check here. Oh yeah, sorry, and then also the ultimate itself is a shield, but let's see the special ability every time applies to ally in the front. Okay, so she doesn't actually shield herself. That is true. Yes, so if you have her HP very high, she becomes incredibly useful because of the shield that she gives to the character in front of her. However, her ultimate is an interesting one because it's both a repositioning one, it forces all of your characters to reposition, but it also shields them. So in PvP, that is crazy strong in a defense team. And I think in PvE, in the campaign, she has actually carried me for a very long time. I think she is a capable kind of healer defender. I'm not quite sure how she's classified. Oh, sorry, no, wrong. I think she's classified as an enchanter, but I would put her as kind of almost like a defender, like a support defender in this case, or a healer, depends how you want to look at it. Definitely a useful character to have, definitely recommended to put her on the rate up lineup together with the other characters. Now, the other characters, I am not going to comment on them so much since I haven't used them, or except for maybe Transcendent Noah. This is a really funny one. I don't want to spoil anything, but Transcendent Noah is probably one of the weakest characters in the entire game. I have no idea how that is even possible, but basically whenever I see Transcendent Noah in like PvP, he has absolutely gorgeous animations, gorgeous attack animations, gorgeous ultimate animation. He creates attacking turret pillars very similar to Piera, but he's absolutely useless. Like, his damage is so incredibly subpar. And also, as you can see here, I have one copy. You cannot, since he's a transcendent character, you cannot select him for rate up on the standard banner, which makes him completely useless. Other than eye candy here, obviously. And that's basically it. Kayn. I don't actually use Kayn, so I would say not terribly useful. Unless you like Kayn's design, then yeah, put him in your team, upgrade him. I don't care, whatever. And Agharas, basic Agharas. not terribly useful. Transcendent Aggro is infinitely more useful, especially his rebirth ability. And then Ressa from the standard bar, we also have Ressa. As you can see, she's at the very bottom, which means I do not play her, and also which means I do not recommend her. There's a bunch of other characters. Yeah, I don't. It's been a while. See, I don't want to cover each of them because I don't really play them. But from the ones that supposedly are strong is Yggdrasil here. He's supposedly a very good defender, which I wouldn't know since I do not play him at all. And from the other characters, I think, Friedrich, I think, is also a pretty good defender that I know since I've seen him and some of the PvP teams people are running. But otherwise, that is basically it. Yeah, that's basically it. I covered all of the characters. One last thing before... One last thing about team composition I kind of want to highlight here, and this is going to be very obvious from the different character classes and kind of character archetypes. So again, I'm going to mention Nikke, Goddess of Victory here because the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 burst works almost exactly the same way, except you can activate any of the stages independently. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3. That is definitely definitely a winning thing about Silver and Blood. However, that being said, you have 5 characters in the team, and you definitely want to get Blood Moon as the effect because it boosts all of the characters and makes all of the abilities cheaper. So you do definitely want to have every character of the different moon stage in your team. So you definitely want to have 1 full moon character, you want to have 1 crescent moon character, and you want to have 1 half moon character. These are the 3, which basically means, yes, you have 2 slots spare, and you can put whatever characters you like into these slots. So you can run, for instance, with 2 full moon characters, you can run with 2 half moon, 2 crescents. That is entirely up to you. However, what's also important to remember is that if you put too many defenders, then obviously you don't have the firepower to win in either a stage or PvP. And on the other hand, if you don't put any defenders, then you end up with a glass cannon, which might sound great, but is not going to win you either PvP or PvE. You're simply not going to survive this. So you definitely need at least 1 of each type. My personal recommendation, that might surprise some people, but my personal recommendation is actually having 2 full moon characters and 1 half moon character. But the other important thing, you definitely also want to have a look at cooldowns. This is the same problem as in Nikke, Goddess of Victory. You do want to have a look at the cooldowns to make sure you're actually proccing Blood Moon as many times in a round as possible. You do definitely want this. So do check out the cooldowns, do balance your team accordingly. But that's basically it from my side. I hope you enjoyed my character guide. And can invite you to my next video, which is going to be a review of Silver and Blood, the final one before I officially say farewell to the game. But that is it for now. See you guys. Mata ne!